Welcome back, viewers. Before the break, we were talking about chronic pain with our special guest, Dr. Charles Castle. Doctor?
John, it's been very interesting so far. I hope the viewers are enjoying this because I think they would be, although most of them are probably out there grabbing their backs and arms and necks and all sorts of things. But Doc, we're just talking about the different forms of chronic pain. In your career, you've been out to workplaces quite a bit, haven't you?
Yes, I've done literally thousands of workplace visits, and for a long period of my career I was working in different factories every day, seeing patients in there, and that gives you a wonderful insight into the sort of conditions that people are faced with in their day-to-day work.
Did that influence your opinion about, you know, what sort of injury a person had, or whether there was a safe workplace and what could be changed, or did you make suggestions to the employer?
Well, I made a lot of suggestions to employers, and some of them were accepted and some of them were not, and in a lot of cases it made a big difference. For example, in one particular case in a textile factory, by changing the type of people that were doing a particular job, we cut down the number of neck and shoulder injuries very substantially.
John, you're a litigation lawyer and you spend quite a bit of time in court. How valuable is it for a doctor to actually visit the workplace to have a look at what the person was doing?
Tony, it's invaluable. When we have a situation where the employer is, in essence, not trying to force the worker back to work, but, you know, saying, look, you know, why can't you go back to work doing these various duties? We a lot of times require that, you know, a GP, a doctor such as Dr. Castle, can go to the workplace and assess exactly what work is required to be done and how that fits in with the worker's injury. Now, a lot of times, well, Tony...
Isn't half the problem, I guess, that in a lot of instances where you've got a case going, you can't ascertain what the actual facts are? And it may be that by visiting the site you can shed a bit of light on that, Doctor?
Well, that's enormously important, because I find that by visiting the workplace you can see exactly what the individual was doing, what the type of machinery that they've been doing is, and you get a very good understanding of how the injury occurred, which I find you can't really obtain in any other way. Certainly a patient can describe to you what has happened, but going and doing a worksite visit is invaluable.
John, when you were involved in this case of FAM, and it wasn't until the end of the case that you had a better idea of what actually happened, because there was a lot of debate about weights and lengths and what in fact the worker was required to do. We
did have a view at the actual employer.
But that was a long time after the accident.
Oh, a long time. And we were lucky we got to see the view, because the factory was literally closing down a couple of months before the hearing, the trial in the Supreme Court. And we had an engineer assess the machinery, and we had the worker also explain to us exactly what he was doing. And you could really, I mean, theoretically you can read it on paper, but without being actually at the work site, it'd be very hard to assess how the injuries occurred.
John, if I can interrupt there, often what the employer thinks is being done is different from what is actually being done, because exactly. Individual workers have particular ways of working and operating, and they set their machinery up in particular ways, and they do all sorts of things which are often not the standard operating procedure that the manager or sometimes even the foreman sitting in the office thinks is being done.
It's an interesting this thing about going to the work site. Doc, can I take you back to chronic pain? We don't know if it's physical or psych. You'd say it's a combination of both. Some instances is physical, others is psych, and in a lot there's both going on. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right. All pain has a psychological component because it is an unpleasant experience and it affects your brain. So there is clearly a psychological component to it, but there is also a substantial physical component to it, which is a continuing process.
And Doc, it's not that clear where the pain's coming from, how can you prescribe, or would you prescribe the injured person medication?
Well, yes, you would prescribe the medication, but you would also advise them on how to handle their pain, on how to modify their activities to minimise it, how to live with it, and so forth. But pain is a central nervous system condition which is being caused by functioning or malfunctioning of the central nervous system, and sometimes in the peripheral nervous system, and therefore we've got all sorts of medications that can modify that. So some of that is important, some of that is crucial, because by using various medications you can modify the pain impulses and improve the way patients function.
But Doctor, my understanding is sometimes if someone's taking medication, it masks the pain, and then they generally do more damage to the area of the body that's been damaged. What do you say about that?
Well, of course, what you need to do is to identify the source of their pain. Now, if somebody has, for example, cancer which is causing continuing pain, then you need to treat that cancer and that particular problem. If, on the other hand, they have got something like back pain and you've been able to do investigations to show that there is no continuing damage or no continuing major structural abnormality going on, then you treat it differently than you would treat somebody who's got an active disease such as osteoarthritis or something like that.
John, what we're going to be looking at, I think we'll have to get the doctor back next week because it's such an interesting area, and I think a lot of our clients and also people in general have got chronic pain, and we might get into different parts of chronic pain, doctor, such as chronic regional pain syndrome. Is that the right word for it?
That's the right word, and I'd be happy to talk about that. They're very complex topics, but they're also vitally important topics.
And I guess complex regional pain syndrome also, Doctor?
Yes.
Now, for our purposes, this topic is important because when we go to court, we need to clarify to the judge what injury are we talking about.
Suffering from. Look, what we'll do, viewers, is we'll go to a sponsors break shortly, but we'll invite Dr. Charles Castle back next week. We'll go over this issue about these different syndromes and also talk about some of the case law, Doctor. So welcome, thanks for coming on board today, and we'll get you back next week. So viewers, we've got to go to the mailbag, so please don't go away. Stay tuned, we'll be back very shortly.